Hey guys, Dr. Fernandez here, chiropractor. And today I'm going to explain to you what chiropractic is and what it is not. We're going to do a chiropractic 101 class here. See, most people, they stereotype chiropractors as neck pain, back pain specialists. Why? Because they've heard of someone that maybe had some type of pain, went to the chiropractor, felt better, and they figure that this is the solution to everything. So what I want you to understand is, first of all, how can chiropractic help us? How can we identify if we have a problem that chiropractic can fix? And most importantly, what exactly is health? If we're trying to achieve health, what is health? See, most people measure their health by their symptoms or lack of symptoms. And this is a big concern of mine because you can feel great and possibly have heart disease. You haven't had a heart attack yet, but yet here's a smoker for 15, 20 years who says, oh, nothing's ever happened to me. And one day they're walking down the street and they collapse because they had a heart attack. So they weren't healthy before they had the heart attack, but they never had a symptom. In fact, 80% of cancer are identified in routine medical examinations without the person ever feeling a symptom. So you can feel great and be dying, or you can feel terrible and be perfectly healthy. Example, somebody has a fever. Primary defense system on the body. Something's wrong, you get a fever because fevers kill bacteria. Fevers get rid of viruses. Fevers increase metabolism. They increase white blood cell production. So a fever many times is the best thing you can have if you're actually sick. What if you went to a fast food place who left the food out of the refrigerator for 24 hours and it tasted delicious with all the sauce, pickles, onions, whatever they may have put on it, but that's not healthy food that you're eating. So to me, the healthiest person is the first person that threw that up. Get rid of it. You don't want it to go into your bloodstream. So here's a person who could be throwing up and be perfectly healthy. So in other words, symptoms, you may not have them and be dying, and you may have them and be the healthiest person on earth. There's one thing you're going to get out of this is stop using how you feel to determine your health. It could be very dangerous. What does chiropractic have to do with any of this? I want you to picture a tree. A tree has these roots. From the roots, you come up with this trunk. From the trunk, you reach out with branches, and at the end of the branches, everything on that tree starts to grow. So you might have leaves over here and fruits over here and flowers over here and whatever. Now, if at the end of this branch we had a bunch of leaves, what would happen to the leaves if I cut the branch? That's right. Those leaves are going to die. Why? Because those leaves are alive as long as they're connected to that tree. Life source is in the tree. Well, you picture your body doing the same thing. We all started off with this brain, this master computer. This brain actually starts to send signals down. This brain has to control the function of every organ and every single gland and every single muscle and every single cell in your body is under the direct control of this brain. Your brain's going to send signals down your spinal cord. That spinal cord is going to start branching off into the individual nerves that are going to reach these organs and glands and muscles and cells and everything else. Therefore, the communication pathway between the brain and the body is going to be your nervous system. Now, if we look at a spine, this brain, most important organ in our body, is actually protected by this skull. It's like a natural helmet. Sends the signal spinal cord right through the center of their spine. And these little yellow branches, what do you think those guys are? These are the spinal nerves that we spoke about earlier. If this nerve was to come out and let's say go to your stomach, what would happen? So this nerve is communicating. Now your brain is going to tell your stomach how long to digest your food, how much acid to produce, if something's wrong, when you should throw up, and so forth. If this bone were to shift just a little bit out of position, we see this bone rotate, it puts pressure on that nerve. Now we start to interfere with the signal. Do you believe that your stomach is going to work at 100% if it's had that nerve impinged? That's right. Eventually, because this bone will have to be out of position for days, for weeks, for months, for years for it to occur. So it's not like if you bend over to your floor and pick something up and you bent a couple of bones out of position, but the moment you stood up, they're back into their normal position, you do not have a problem. The problem is if that bone stays there long enough, eventually it can start leading to all kinds of problems. Not only could the stomach start functioning wrong, what do we normally do? We might take some antacid and we felt better. But have you fixed the problem? That little problem can turn into something more complicated in the future. Maybe an ulcer, maybe heaven knows. But what if that interference, instead of going to the stomach, was going to your lungs or your heart or your sciatic nerve or your head. There's a lot of different things that could be going, and you start to realize that this spine plays a big role in overall health. So it's very important that we follow proper spinal hygiene, I'm going to call it. We need to take care of the spine. And if we can identify these problems, we need to try to correct them before they become degenerative. In other words, if a bone is out of position, just like the tires on your car, if they're functioning out of position, they're going to wear out prematurely. Well, in your spine, if these bones are functioning out of alignment, they will wear out prematurely. And that's going to lead to damages in the disc, such as a herniated or bulging disc. It can cause arthritic changes, spurring, and so forth. Once these degenerative changes are there, we cannot reverse them. So the best way is to prevent them from happening in the first place. 80% of these nerves do not cause pain. That means 80% of the problems that we find in our office are not necessarily causing you pain today. You have to kind of compare this more to a dentist. If a dentist evaluates you and finds a little cavity, which is not causing you any pain, is it a good idea for him to fix that little cavity today or tell you to come back when it starts to hurt? By the time it starts to hurt, you may have so much damage that you might need a root canal, you might need a tooth extraction. Same thing in chiropractic, except we cannot replace these vertebrae. The ideal thing is to identify these problems and correct them before they cause any degenerative changes. Now, what can cause these misalignments? We call them subluxations. Very important word because we're always using it. What can cause these subluxations? Number one reason why people walk in my office, physical. They got into a car accident, they slipped and fell, they carried something the wrong way, they slept on the floor because their next door neighbor told them it was good for them. They sat in a chair in this position because they read it was good for them. If you're sitting for 8 hours in front of a computer desk, I don't care what position you're sitting in, chances are it's going to create some type of imbalance or stress into your spine. So physical is the number one reason why people come to see me, and in many cases it could be the one that least concerns me. Because if you had an auto accident yesterday and you came to see me today, how long have you had the problem? 24 hours, piece of cake. If you had an auto accident 20 years ago and you came to see me today, it's a little bit more complicated. Number two and number three are probably the ones that scare me the most. Let me ask you, what do you think that could affect your spine that would not be physical? Exactly. Number two, chemical. Now we know that drugs can affect us. Alcohol, cigarettes, caffeine, all these drugs can actually affect us. But the same way that drugs can affect us, many ingredients in our foods, the way we process foods, sensitivities that people may have, can actually affect your body's balance. And the last one is going to be emotional stress. Emotional stress to me is much more harmful than physical stress. Now, physical stress, like an accident, it's 1 second, it's over. But emotional stress, if somebody's going through a divorce or somebody they passed away in the family or they don't have money to pay the bills, these stresses can last for days, weeks, months, and years. The longer the problems stay there, the more damage they can create. You have to understand, 80% of the problems that we deal with in the spine are not causing pain today. They're going to take a while to show up. So if we start to understand where the problem is, if we actually start to create a correction program for it, and most importantly, if we can find a way to prevent these problems from coming back, that would be the true benefit of chiropractic. So hopefully you start putting together that our goal is not only to get rid of your pain, because pain is usually the last thing to come, and in many cases it's the first thing that goes away. So if you've had a problem for 20 years and your pain started last week and you came to see me this week, in 1 week I may get rid of your pain. I've only put you as good as you were 2 weeks ago. We still had 20 years of correction to try to work on. Hopefully, I'm giving you a better picture of what chiropractic is and it is not. And if you start to really understand what I'm saying, you start to wonder who should have their spines evaluated by a chiropractor. Should you wait till you're in an auto accident? Should you wait till you have major symptoms? Proper spinal hygiene is the same way you take care of your teeth. You want to work on it daily with exercise, and you want to get it evaluated regularly with a chiropractor, and you want to prevent major problems from arising. This is what chiropractic should be. So the earlier we have our evaluation, the better off we know what our true spinal health is. If you have any more questions, feel free to contact my office, Dr. Fernandez. Take care.